Overwatch friends, we are so back. I just got back to my hotel room after spending the day at the Overwatch 2 Spotlight with a ton of other creators, and it's been a long day. I really want to talk about the gameplay I experienced today and the fun I had, and maybe provide some information that wasn't really available to everyone watching at home, or for people who have a hard time understanding how it felt to play. Then hopefully I can share some insight into how it actually was to play at the Overwatch 2 Spotlight today, which really contained mostly changes for Season 15, which releases next Tuesday, and also Season 16 looking ahead, which is when Stadium will be released, which is this new game mode that they announced at the Overwatch 2 Spotlight. But I want to start with the perks first of all, and talk about the perks, because this is the new system that is coming to Overwatch 2 to really shake up the game, shake up the gameplay, and make Overwatch feel fresh again. I am so excited for this, and it was so much fun really getting my first hands-on experience with this kind of system. It really did what I think it would do. You get into a game, you pick the hero that you always pick, and it just changes the way you play the character. It changes the way you think about how you want to play that character, which I think is incredibly important in this day and age of video games. For the past year, Overwatch has seen a lot of competition when it comes with a lot of other games. I think the most notable ones are of course going to be Deadlock, which is a MOBA and plays more like a MOBA, not necessarily a hero shooter, but plays on a hero shooter where you get access to abilities which also can be enhanced. You can buy items and really change up your gameplay in a way that makes Overwatch feel pretty outdated. And obviously the most recent example is Marvel Rivals, which comes out, they play 6v6 and there's no role queue and you can pick whatever character you want. And they're really just like fun maxing. There's great team power-ups that Aaron Keller also talked about. He referenced those and said that is something they looked at as well, and that might be something that comes in the future, which would be really exciting in that regard. But as it comes to perks, I think that Overwatch has seen a lot of competition from a lot of different games now. Even dating back to when Overwatch released, there was no Apex, there was no Fortnite. And so Overwatch has been out for a long time now and kind of remained the same game. The only biggest difference really has been, of course, you can look at role queue, for example. That was obviously big. But 5v5, I think, was the biggest one that really changed the way, the dynamic of how Overwatch was played. But people gave that a go. They said, okay, this is pretty cool, but it's still Overwatch. And I think perks do change the way which Overwatch is played. It's that big of a system. And I think it's going to be a big boon as Overwatch moves forward. Not into just 2025, but into many years after that. Something that makes the game feel more alive for the next 5 years to come. And it's also, curiously, another modifier which the developers can play around with, right? That is something they talked about today. I did an interview with a couple of developers on my stream when I played, and they said that this is just a helpful system for us as developers too, because we can balance the game with some of these perks. And so I'm really excited to see how this goes. I think it was so much fun to play with. But again, let's talk a little bit about my experience and playing with the perks themselves. So what was it like playing with perks? You start out at level 1, and then when you level into level 2, you get a minor perk, which is usually a smaller upgrade. Although I will say, some heroes, I kind of did look forward more to the minor perk. And a great example is Hanzo, for example. You get the scatter arrow as your minor perk on that character. And you get the choice to actually hack a pack with your sonic arrow for the second minor perk. And those are pretty big perks. They really do change the way you do play the character. So Hanzo, usually a pretty diveable character. But if you can put a sonic arrow down on a space which you want to hold from, and guarantee yourself a health pack, because essentially the enemy can't grab that health pack, right? That's a lot of extra HP for you as a character that might be useful for you if you're trying to hold down a specific space, but then in comes, a wrecking ball or something like that. That added extra HP can make a big difference. For some characters that does make sense. The major perk is the big one. You can't wait to level up to level 3, whether it's Torbjorn, for example. You can, activate your turret and upgrade it during your ability. I forget what it's called. And there's definitely some major perks that are really exciting, but also there's a lot of minor perks that are really exciting. And given the level system, you get the level 2 perks, the minor perks, relatively early in the game, I would say, to the point where like it starts changing pretty rapidly your gameplay experience, right? And so that was a lot of fun. So it was fun. There were some perks that were a lot of fun to play with, and those specifically were the ones that made you think, right? Made you think about how are you going to use this character. Is there a choice, a meaningful choice between the 2 perks? Is there one perk that could be useful in my circumstance? Or is there another one that maybe I want to pick considering the composition I'm up against? For example, I think a great example of a perk that I really love, that I think exemplifies what a great perk is Biotic Grenade's bouncy biotic, or whatever it's called. It's called something like that. But essentially, you pick a minor perk, and Ana's Biotic Grenade will bounce from walls. And that means that you can bounce it on the ground too. So that means you can throw down your Biotic Grenade. You could hit it on yourself if you want to get healed, or you could hit it next to a teammate, next to an enemy, whatever. But then it bounces forward, and you get the opportunity to hit 2 areas with the anti-heal or the heal itself. You can throw it, around corners if you'd like to. You can bounce it off walls into an area that you can't necessarily see. And that is a very, interactive perk where it changes the way you throw your Biotic Grenade, right? And that's a pretty meaningful activity, right? Because you get that every 20 seconds or something like that. So that changes the way you play Overwatch. And it's fun to use that. It's fun to bounce nades off walls. That's a small, fun little thing, right? So there are a lot of perks in the game like that I think are really healthy for the game. And it does feel, change up the way you play Overwatch and makes the gameplay more fun and entertaining in that regard. Hero swapping. When you swap off a hero, you restart from level 1. But you don't have to start all the way from... it won't take you as long to build up your level, because one of the things that Gavin clarified, an Overwatch developer, was that as the game progresses, you will earn level faster. And so that means if you're halfway through a game and you swap to the different hero, you're going to earn experience faster. And also, if you kill people or eliminate people who are a high level, you will get more quote-unquote experience and also level up faster. And so it is a bit of an interesting mechanic where, because of the leveling aspect and selecting perks, there is going to be a bit of a preventative measure of hero swapping as freely as we have in Overwatch 2. People are going to be more invested in their character choice, and maybe you will even get some matchmaking lobbies where players who won't swap over to certain heroes because they think, I've leveled up to level 3 on this character, and I don't think I'm quite as keen to go back to level 1, even though it makes sense compositionally. And so that is something that I think the developers, I spoke to them about this, of course, and they said they were quite open to, maybe this is something we need to adjust in the future. We'll kind of see how it plays out. And if changes are need to be made, then that is something we want to do, of course. That is something they're investigating and looking at. Moving on, were perks too much? I know that is something that some people were going to push. With this system, I think it's going to turn into a bit of a debate, similar to the 5 versus 5, 6 versus 6 crowd, where there's going to be some people who go, oh, Overwatch Classic, it was way better. It was way better before perks. It was fair. It was like chess. It was the most fairest game possible. There's no stupid perks, arcade, beep, 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 like nothing of that. And so there's going to be 2 camps. But I am firmly in the camp that perks were just fun. And look, we need to be fun maxing. Overwatch is a game that competes for attention, popularity, and playtime with other games, and you want people to come back to the game. You want people to have fun and playing in the game. And perks are fun. Are they quote-unquote fair or whatever? Does it, could we do without it if we want it to be the fairest esport in existence, fairest game of existence? Yeah, but, how many people play Quake these days? Those games that stay the same and are so rooted in this is what we are, this is the game we are. Eventually, people get bored, they move on, and they play something new. They play a new gameplay experience. I don't think perks are too much. It definitely didn't feel like too much. And considering there's just, usually 2 perks involved as well, I think it was a perfect amount for what it is currently. And then maybe you want to add additional perks later. I mean, frick it, why not? 2035. And obviously, I think we're going to land in a pretty comfortable spot where Some perks are obviously overpowered, some perks are going to be abused, but the developers will actively, balance those perks, and they will pay attention to what is going on in the current perk meta. Is there one perk that is really annoying? And of course, there's going to be perks that suck. There are going to be perks that are so awful, and there's going to be heroes that, they mold out of control because the player base are just like, this hero sucks. But they will buff those, and they will adjust those. And speaking to Costa as well, who, congratulations on the job, man, is now working at Blizzard as a developer. He said also as well, we're paying attention to what perks are being used, of course. And there are definitely some perks which are our favorites. There are some perks that are shining examples of what we believe a good perk is. And we're going to change it up. If we think that one perk is bad, then what prevents them from taking out a perk and putting in a new one, right? So I think they're going to use this as a way to update heroes, change gameplay loops. For example, I think Roadhog is a great one, where a major perk for Roadhog is that he actually heals allies around him. Now that sounds pretty toxic, where you're like, oh my god, flashbacks, Roadhog can heal allies, AoE healing, wow, sustain. But actually, you can look at a hero like Roadhog, add a perk, and say, we don't think that the current gameplay loop for Roadhog is that healthy. This perk maybe will give Roadhog, a little treat, a little cookie, a little something to just make Roadhog players play the hero a little bit different, which might help the team a little bit more. And if you're still a Roadhog one trick and you ended up selecting the healing perk and then you don't heal your team, like, what are we really doing here? But this is another system for them to, turn a little knob and try to change player behavior, because ultimately that is why perks are fun, right? I said it at the start of the video. Why are perks fun? Because they change the way you play the game. And so maybe they can change the way some people play certain heroes to make it more fun for everyone on the team. Now, there has been also some concerns. I've seen some tweets out there, and people are like, oh, so much knockback. Look at how many heroes have knockback perks. Look at how many heroes have healing perks. There's so much healing. There's so many healing perks. But this is another thing that I spoke to the developers, and they were like, we're not trying to force sustain. We're not trying to force healing into the game, right? If you're a tank player, then yeah, of course, sometimes healing is going to be quite useful. Sometimes you get supports that don't have a lot of inherent healing ability, for example. And then you'll have to rely more on yourself, and then a healing perk can be quite useful, actually, because you don't have the teammates or the backline required to sustain yourself. And so I don't think necessarily that they're trying to just overinvest in healing into the game. I genuinely just think they're trying to implement a system that allows players to customize their gameplay, and so that they can extract more fun out of it without always being reliant on their teammates customizing it. Because when you think about it, right, if I'm a tank player, I rely so much on my backline. Whenever I take part in a Reinhardt duel and my backline is Send Mercy, while the other team has, I don't know, Lucio, or let's say Juno Ana, like, the Juno Ana Reinhardt is having a blast. He gets speedring, he gets nano, I get anti-nated, I have like Discord orb up my ass. It just changes. Like, I'm so reliant on my backline's customization. This system allows me to customize my gameplay a little bit without always having to rely on my teammates, depending on the situation at hand. And of course, what I think is fun, right? So I love perks. I think it's a great system, and I'm looking forward to playing more with this and see how it goes. Some people have also highlighted, of course, that perks are going to be in OWCS starting already next weekend. It's unfortunate. It sucks. It's not good. I'm not going to say it's good, because it's not good. It ruins the competitive integrity. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. It is what it is. There's no OPR available, like in the good old days of Overwatch League. Like, I think everyone can agree that, I mean, that honestly would be a pretty decent conversation, is that, like, should you just get with the times? I think it's pretty unfair. I want more competitive integrity, maybe for a week or two, but it would also suck if we didn't have perks for the Stage 1 finals. So, like, I don't know. It sucks for the competitive integrity. I feel for the players. I feel for the coaches. If you're a competitor and you have to learn all these systems, and then you have to learn it in like 4 weeks, you can't practice it. It generally does suck. So I do feel bad for them. I don't know what the greatest solution will be. It sucks for them. All right, let's talk about Stadium for a second. So Stadium is they called it like the third mode, the third way to play the game. Essentially, what they're talking about is that there's quick play, competitive, and they're committing to Stadium being the third dedicated way to play the game. And so it will be like a separate... Actually, I had an interview with Aaron Keller, and I'm pretty sure he said there will be a separate team working on this. Or like, you know, like there's a team probably looking more competitive. There's a team probably looking more at like, you know, quick play. And there's going to be some people paying attention to Stadium. How is Stadium performing? How are people having fun in Stadium? And so they're really betting big on this. They think this is going to be a great way to enjoy the game. So what is Stadium? Stadium is essentially best of 7 of very small maps and rounds of Overwatch. So, for example, Clash is best of 3. It's not best of 5. When it comes to the points, it's not like 5 points, it's 3 points. Control, it's 1 round. Push, it's like half a push. It's like 5 minutes or whatever it is. And so it's shortened maps of Overwatch in a best of 7. But what is the big feature with Stadium? Well, it's customization. It's perks, but a lot of them. Now, it's similar to Deadlock. It is similar to Deadlock. Let's not be shy about it. It's very similar to Deadlock in that there are some passive perks that like give you some weapon damage, some give you ability power, and some give you survivability. It's pretty similar to Deadlock in that regard. Then there are some active as well. There's some active perks as well. There's some perks that are specifically designed for the hero you're playing, and there are some perks that are, you know, role relevant or, you know, pretty broad. You can see them on multiple different characters. So let's give an example. Like all characters, they have access to like the basic perks that are like 5% weapon lifesteal. You get a little bit of lifesteal. Then there are like the rare perks that are worth 4,000 currency. So the basic one are 1,000 currency. Rare ones are 4,000 currency. And then the epic ones are 9,000, 10,000, or 11,000 currency. Maybe I'll talk more about currency later. But then, you know, on the rare ones, it'll be like, oh, you get a little bit extra. It can be like convert 100 health to 100 shield, for example. And that perk might show up on a few different characters where that could be useful. And then in Epic as well, there's going to be some that are designed for the character you picked. So if you pick Reinhardt, there's going to be some Epic perks that are good for Reinhardt, specifically for Reinhardt. And then there's going to be, you know, some pretty general ones. So a general Epic perk would be when you have your ultimate and you haven't used it, when you're at 100% ultimate charge, your character will just be better. You get 10 ability power, 10, you get more health, you get more weapon damage. It just boosts your entire character. But then when you use your ultimate, you know, you suffer some character ability in that regard. And so this is the big thing. Currency, not quite sure how currency works. I think it's a mix of like damage, healing, your typical stats, contribution. I did notice when I played Reinhardt, I felt like I was falling behind in currency. And I couldn't tell if it was because I was underperforming or genuinely because I think that Reinhardt maybe earned less currency. I couldn't exactly figure out how the currency worked, but, you know, I didn't have a ton of time in the mode. It was just like a few hours, and I didn't really ask anyone about it. That goes for perks as well. I didn't say it in the perks section, but I think perks kind of like lives separately from On Fire and Ultimate Charge, and it's just kind of like a third way to like gain experience. But it lives like alongside those, and the same goes for currency in Stadium then. So Stadium, a lot of fun, a lot of chaotic. It felt like, and I don't mean to put Stadium down when I say this, but it felt like a very polished arcade mode. It might have even been better than that, but I mean, yeah, it was Junkenstein's Revenge with like a customized game mode format, I guess, with the best of 7, right? It felt arcadey in the way that it was fun. You know, I was not like overthinking this mode and thinking like, oh, this is great for competitive gaming, and you know, it might be down the line. But what really just took me away with the mode is I get an opportunity to queue into a game or a longer series, a best of 7, and I get to customize this character because there's no hero swapping. There's no hero switching in Stadium. You pick a character at the start, and then you're committed to that character. And I just get to customize it, have fun, and by round 7, if you get to round 7, it is mayhem. I mean, there is stuff everywhere. Characters have like 3 times their health pools. There's damage, there's mini sound barriers, there's bobs, double ultimates. There's a Reaper perk where if you shadow step, and I had this, you shadow step, it does a mini Death Blossom. Every time I'm shadow stepping on Reaper, I do a mini Death Blossom. Like, it's just insane. And so just imagine this on Acid, and by the round 7, it's just absolute mania. But that is fun. It's so much fun, and it's another way to, you know, customize your gameplay loop. And I don't think it's the most serious thing in the world. I think it's genuinely just a fun way to consume Overwatch. It's very chaotic in that regard. A lot of you saw that creators played this mode in third person. That Stadium was being played in third person. That is not mandatory. That is an option in the settings, which I think is for Stadium strictly. So it says like Stadium perspective or something like that. And there's a drop-down menu, and you can select between third person or first person. But I decided to just play in third person because I thought that was, you know, something to try out and see how that was. And I tried a bunch of different characters on it. And it was a lot of fun. Third person was a lot of fun. It worked for some characters. It didn't work for others. If you're playing a pretty aim-reliant hero, I could see this being a pretty annoying. And especially if you play a hero that like scopes in, there are definitely some bugs there. But I want to start with the good first. I played Genji, for example. I think Genji is a good example of a hero where, obviously, if you want to be, you know, Haxal or Necros, then yeah, maybe you want to maximize, you know, your shuriken preciseness or accuracy or whatever, right? Or maybe you don't want to aim in a third person kind of way, right? But you get more spatial awareness. You see the battlefield more, you see what's going on, and it makes it pretty satisfying when you're playing heroes that kind of rely on that, or they're more fun to play in that regard. So you sacrifice maybe some preciseness when it comes to aim, but you get more spatial awareness and more of an idea of what the battlefield is looking like. I could see how this could be useful on some heroes, like maybe like Winston would be a good example. I didn't play Winston because Winston is not available in Stadium. Stadium was only available for a select number of characters, maybe like 15 or 20 or something like that. So not all characters in the game. Reinhardt, I'm not so sure yet because I have so much experience playing Reinhardt in first person. But I guess with Reinhardt's kit, then yeah, maybe third person Reinhardt would be it. I saw Aspen play Juno in third person, and it actually looked pretty good playing Juno in third person. So that is definitely, I could see some people doing as well. Yeah, I really like third person. I think people are sleeping on it a little bit. Now, there were some bugs. It was not flawless. And by making a third person kind of mode, then there's going to be some issues, specifically when it comes to preciseness and crosshair alignment, right? Because if you're in first person, your crosshair is in the middle of the screen that is straight ahead. When you're third person and you're slightly off center, where your crosshair is aimed, that's going to be dependent on depth of essentially your character, because it's off center, right? Geometry, simple geometry. And so that was a little bit off sometimes. So if you played a character like Ana or Ashe, then when you were scoped in, your crosshair placement was a little bit off compared to when you were defaulting back to third person. So if I lined up a shot in third person and scoped in, it would be off, which made it quite difficult when you're trying to like quick scope. It feels awkward when you're trying to quick scope as Ana because of obviously your crosshair is off then. So then you'd have to recenter your aim every time you go into the scope thing. And that is Stadium for you. A really fun mode. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. There were some new maps and stuff like that. I'm gonna be honest, I got a little bit lost in the saucer with so many announcements and new content announced that I kind of lost track a little bit. But there's some new maps to be played there, so that was a lot of fun. Trying to think if there's anything more on Stadium. If you guys have any questions about this, feel free to leave them in the comment down below, and I'll respond whenever I see some unresponded comments on. So, FREJA. I haven't talked about FREJA. Let's end on FREJA, and we can kind of make that our last thing to talk about as well. I could see how if you're just reading the hero kit, or you don't get a hands-on experience of FREJA, that it looks pretty basic. Like, it's a little cool, but it looks pretty basic. And you're like, what's the deal? What's the deal with FREJA? And that's where the magic of Overwatch polish comes in. If you get a hands-on experience with this character, and you're a decent, let's say you enjoy mechanics, okay? You don't even have to be that good at mechanics. You don't have to be, you could be like gold mechanics player or whatever. I'm not trying to discriminate lower ranks here. But what the point I'm trying to make is, if you just have the faintest enjoyment of mechanics, this character feels so good to play. It feels so good. The comparison I drew is, do you know the satisfaction of a Lucio boop? Just like booping someone. It's satisfying. You knock them back a little bit. The sound it makes, the effect of them, like, boop, it's so satisfying. And Freya has this in the way that she levitates, the way things move down, the sound of the weapon, the way you hit these little aim down sights darts onto your opponent. Such a satisfying character to play. And I think people are gonna get like addicted to playing this character. You're going, whether you like the character or not, whether the character is good or not, there's going to be so many Freya players because it's genuinely just a fun character to play and it feels satisfying. And you get home from work, you get home from school, and you're like, I just want to levitate and lock down my sights and just pump some arrows out and get some damage out. The bounty system itself, you get some extra ultimate charge, I believe. It's cool. It's satisfying. You know, it feels a little good. The ultimate itself, I'm not entirely sold on the ultimates. I actually didn't get an opportunity to play Freya myself when it came to a rank game. But I've played the character before, and so I've definitely had some experience playing this character. I think it's just a very satisfying character. I'm curious to see how this character works its way into compositions. I'm not entirely sure just yet. There's definitely quite a bit of poke that can be output, especially with some of the perks that are in there, but they said that the perks are not finalized for Freya, so take those with a grain of salt. The burst damage can just be pretty crazy. You know, if you combine a couple of dashes with regenerating some aim down sights arrows, I forget what they're called. There's definitely a lot of burst potential if you can land 2 of those on like a different damage character, right? And I think you even kill some of the hero roster if you get a couple of those in, right? So quite lethal in that regard. Bounty hunter, if you will, you can assassinate some opponents. So it's a really satisfying character to play. It feels really good to play that hero. I think it's going to be another example of like, I don't know how to say this really. I don't know if this makes sense, but it almost feels like more of an aiming venture in that regard, like a hit scan venture. Like when you play venture, like it's just a fun hero kit. It just feels satisfying to use the venture abilities, and I feel like the same way just playing Freya, but you got a crossbow and you got these aim down sight stuff, right? So I'm kind of ranting at this point, but I think for people who might be a bit skeptical of Freya or don't get the deal, I would say just wait until you get 5 games of Freya in yourself, and hopefully you can see that what I felt anyway, and that is just like a very satisfying character to play, and it's pretty fun to play in that regard. So I keep saying in that regard, and that is something I'll have to stop for next video. But I hope you at least get, yeah, I think that's about it. If you guys have any additional questions about the Spotlight, I'll feel free to answer those questions below. And I'm just so excited for the future. I think these systems are going to be great. The new game mode is going to be great. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. This will keep me, make me continue to feel very excited about Overwatch for a long time into the unforeseeable future, I suppose. And so, yeah, today was a great day. Today was a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure you leave a comment down below with what you thought about the Spotlight. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time for the next video. Take care, everybody, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.